Hello everyone, this is Nacho. You can find me online as NotThatNDA. Animating character interactions with the world is difficult, but it gets a lot more complicated when you want to animate interactions between moving characters. Often, to achieve the simplest believable interactions in 3D software, you need to do complex setups involving constraints and parent switching, which is not always possible when linking armatures to a scene, and requires on top the use of intermediate baking to helper objects. What if I told you that there is a way to do this easily and on the fly? With Transformator, you will be able to achieve this in a few clicks without having to prepare your armatures at all. To illustrate this, I am going to fix an animation I retargeted with AutoRig Pro from an Unreal animation pack. Let me know in the comments if that type of content is something that you would like to see me cover. When retargeting animation contact points, especially for limbs that are not IK or that have different dimensions between the source and the target rig, will prove complicated. In this example, we have a game finisher animation for a video game character stabbing another one in the chest. As you can see, the contact between the sword and the chest is not great. I am going to teach you how to transform this into this in just a few clicks and with real-time corrections using Transformator's latest features. I am going to explain the new features and how they work and then apply them to fix the animation. Let's check it out. We have introduced a new mechanism where pins or copies can look at a certain point in space. This point in space can either be the 3D cursor by default, or it can be any object or bone. And you can set that up either just by activating this and then it will look at the 3D cursor, or you can just pick up the object or bone that you want to follow here. There's one independent setting for each of the copies or pins. What we're going to do for this test is correct a bit of an issue that where you see here, this thing is not aiming at the pierce point and then it has a bit of wobble. You see that it goes in and it moves to the chest and it's not really pinned to the right place where it should. We're going to correct this, and for that we're going to be using Transformator. Until now you could do something very similar by selecting these two elements, finding the point where the weapon goes in, and then for now I'm going to just do a pin relative. This will make sure that the hand and the chest are keeping the relative position stuck. So you see that there are some places like here where it works particularly well because they move together and then you can bake that. But there are some points where the IK hand overextends and is breaking the elbow because it's pulling a bit too far. You could offset that by rotating a bit forward the spine, but you see that you will have to do it a lot, or you could offset the animation here, but there are other problems that creates. So in order to solve this, I have created the new type of constraint, and what we're going to do is aim the hand more or less at where the cursor is right now, but that will mean that it will look at the cursor but change based on the cursor's world position. So we are going to show now a new tool that we have introduced, which is called Pin Pivot. What this will do is pin the 3D cursor to any bone or object that we have. This ensures that the 3D cursor will follow that element no matter what is selected. And now we can do our trick. We go back to frame 31, where we have aimed the sword to the chest. We select the hand, and now we're going to do something that intuitively looks a bit awkward, which is a pin global, because we don't want it relative to the chest, relative to anything, we just want a global pin. Why is that? Well, you see that stays in the air, but that is because we're pinning it globally, but because it's copying location, rotation and scale from the global pin. We deactivate that. This is only for this case. There are many combinations where that would make sense, but in this case we don't want that. We just want the look at, and we wanted to keep looking at the 3D cursor. And because the 3D cursor is bound to the chest of the other character, then what it will do is going to be aiming from frame 31, where we had it looking at the chest. It will continue to look at the chest at the exact point relative rotation that it had when it took out, and you see that that fixes all the stretching because it's not trying to force the position relative to the chest, it's just changing the rotation. Let's say that we want to correct a bit this hand position is as easy on the fly. We can just shift, right click, and we can reposition the 3D cursor because it's being pinned relative because of the pin pivot to the spine. Then you can reposition this and say, oh, I wanted to attack a bit more that way. After we can move that a bit. And that means that all the way through from this frame is aiming again at the new pivot point because we can change this, but because it's moving relative, it will maintain the trajectory and stab on the exact point until it's released. So what we want now that we have done those corrections on the fly, without any lookat, without any constraints, this is just a super flexible on the fly system. What we're going to do now is we're going to bake it. Before you had to go and find frame 31 to 51, I think is the last one before it goes out. And I'm noticing that there is already out, so we probably want a bit of a lower aim, so the blade is still inside of the chest before it gets completely removed. So before you had to select this, but there's a problem with that, is that if there's another bone that has hidden selected keys, then you can bake to something that you don't want. So by popular demand, I have introduced a new way of baking. So you can do it to selected keyframes as before, to the whole scene or preview range. If you're in preview, it will prioritize the preview, or you can do to manual range. In this case, we want 31 to 51. I'm going to select insert extra keyframe, so it will insert, this one is on 1, so it doesn't really change anything. And we're going to click OK. So that removes the pivot, but it has baked the whole animation of the hand through the chest. And that is the complete new animation with all those positions corrected. And we did that in just a few clicks by understanding all the new tools that you have at your disposition within Transformator. You can use the exact same way, the copy relative and lookat or global, they work the same way. If there are any things that you would like to see implemented in Transformator, please join our Discord community or reach out to me directly. Thanks a lot and happy animating.